I'm delighted to welcome Ravi and Stephen today as our co-presenters on the webinar. Ravi Gidamal is an experienced commercial director and business strategy advisor with a successful record of large-scale commercial program delivery and technology-led business transformation. He's got over 20 years of commercial and consultancy experience gained across multiple industries and sectors as an investment banker and management consultant. Dr. Stephen Barr is a chartered engineer, designer, business advisor, and experienced company director. He was the national director of the Manufacturing Advisory Service. He specializes in making data and digital technology deliver real value in manufacturing. Stephen spends most of his time shoulder to shoulder with manufacturing business leaders, helping them to leverage Industry 4 and older technologies to deal with business challenges, net zero, and growth ambitions. So together, Ravi and Stephen are founding directors of Edge Digital Manufacturing and members of the board of DRL-tool.org, the not-for-profit cross-industry digital readiness consortium. The technical authors of British Standards PAS 1040 on digital readiness. They've worked together for 8 years, serving manufacturing and technology businesses and many more through leading government programs such as Made Smarter and in private practice. So we have two real experts with us today. So delighted that you're able to deliver today's session, gents. And without further ado, let me hand over to you to start the presentation.
Mark, thank you very much indeed, and thanks to everybody joining us, increasing numbers as we go along. This really is quite a broad topic, so I hope you're braced for a broad and in some senses deep review of data and digital technologies in manufacturing. It's based on experience that Ravi and I have had with now over 60 companies since we joined forces. What we want to do here is give you a sufficient overview, really to whet your appetite maybe for some follow-on, more detailed sessions, perhaps on specific topics like smart manufacturing and around data and digital applications in specific manufacturing industries. What we thought we'd do for this session is to look at three big questions. So firstly, what are data and digital technologies? The answer to that question is expanding all the time. How can data and digital boost my particular business? What sorts of benefits do these technologies bring? And then how can I maximize my particular return on investment in data and digital? We're going to leave hopefully plenty of time for questions at the end, but as Mark has said, if you want to raise, in fact it would help us a great deal if you raise questions in the chat as we go along. If there are any burning issues, then we'll try to answer those, but better to have a group discussion perhaps at the end of those. So let's get on to the first question. So what are data and digital technologies? Sometimes this comes across as a bit of a cliche. Some of you will be very familiar with these buzzwords on the right-hand side. Fourth industrial revolution, industrial digital technologies, big data, factory of the future, all of these rather grand-sounding things. They're meant to spark interest in the whole subject, but perhaps rather more useful is to think about how it came about. So 4 phases, 4 waves of manufacturing technology going right the way back to the 1800s. If you think about what has happened in that period of several hundred years, we've gone all the way from early mechanization of mills, of what would now seem fairly basic factories, but nevertheless building towards an increasing ability for mass production of automobiles at the beginning of the 20th century, another wave of industrial automation, probably in the 60s and 70s, which most of us used to think was pretty darn cool until the new wave of cyber physical systems came along as well. You think of the timescales that have gone on. Really, that's a very short period. Certainly the last 50 years, an amazing acceleration of the world's ability to manufacture things more and more efficiently, to reduce costs, to be more productive, to be more efficient, and really to boost the competitiveness of companies within particular industries. So whatever buzzword you like to use, the important thing is making this relevant to individual businesses. So hopefully we've those phrases whet some kind of appetite for learning more about them. Let's have a look a little bit more deeply as to what kinds of data and digital technologies are part of these of the new revolution. So this reference comes from a publication that even now looks out of date, from 2017, the Made Smarter review carried out on behalf of UK government by Jürgen Meyer and a big cross-industry team. You can see the technical enablers that they have identified in the center there are really very high level. They're, if you like, categories of technologies around advanced robotics, additive manufacturing or 3D printing, augmented reality, simulation, horizontal and vertical integration of systems that drive operations, industrial internet, cloud technologies, cybersecurity, big data and analytics, all very well, but we probably need to get down to the nitty-gritty of what's in the box, as it were. We'll come back to the benefits a little bit later on. It might be helpful, potentially, to think about the manufacturing value chain, going all the way from suppliers through designers and manufacturers to end users and possibly even consumers of manufactured goods and services. This idea of a network and of a continuum of manufacturing, I think, is quite an interesting one. And what we can see is that data and digital technologies, the things in the white rectangles there, really spread across the whole of the manufacturing value chain. In other words, every single aspect of what we do as manufacturers can potentially be helped, enhanced with data and digital technologies of different kinds. Some of them you could think of as foundational. So enterprise resource planning, ERP systems, for example, not very sexy, but absolutely important for any manufacturing organization to keep keep control, keep on top of the data that really describe how the business is performing. Where's the money coming from? How productive is the business being? Which pieces need to be improved? How are they engaging with their customers? And everything else kind of fits around that. So you can think of central data systems, manufacturing execution system, looking specifically at operations and stock control and delivery of products, and a whole range of other more esoteric systems running through from the earliest design stages. For example, we're seeing increasing use of virtual reality so that customers can be involved in the design and specification of the product that they're going to benefit from later on. Digital twins, now increasingly common, and there's a lot of research and development going on to make them as accessible as possible for smaller and smaller businesses. Digital twins allow you to simulate what's going on in a business and to know how to optimize the control of the business without actually making the changes on the shop floor until you're completely sure what's necessary. Increasing developments in Internet of Things and sensors as well on the right-hand side. So when you've made your product and sold it to a customer, you can help the customer to optimize the use of that product, automatically or semi-automatically, whatever's more appropriate there. And improvements in wireless connectivity and so on are helping the Internet of Things technologies to be even better. I'm going to move on and talk a bit about the Made Smarter program. I think in Mark's introduction, it was mentioned how Ravi and I have been lucky enough to be quite heavily involved with Made Smarter since its inception, and in particular with the Northwest pilot of Made Smarter's support program for small and medium-sized manufacturers in the Northwest region. We could go onto the website. In fact, let me just flip across and do that now. The point of doing that is just to show the broad scope of the services that are available from Made Smarter and coming soon, we hope, to the Yorkshire and Humberside region, which has been chosen as one of the next generation of Made Smarter delivery programs. If I can pick the right window, let me just see where this has gone. So this is the Made Smarter website. And I simply wanted to pull this up to give you a pointer, really, if you haven't already come across Made Smarter. Certainly something you might be interested in the near future in Yorkshire and Humberside, and indeed other regions as well. And rather selfishly, also to point out that digital road mapping is a core part of the Made Smarter offer. Digital road mapping, we would call it digital breakthrough, and that's one of the things we'll be talking about in much more detail on this webinar. And indeed looking at some of the case studies from that as well. Let me go back to the slides. The Made Smarter website has also actually done a really good job of collating, bringing together information about particular technologies, particularly the ones that they're interested in funding, it has to be said. But here's a broader, deeper dive into those technologies. Deeper than the Made Smarter review picked up on a few years ago. So all the time this is evolving, and Made Smarter is doing a good job, I think, of making these more and more relevant to small and medium-sized manufacturers in particular. So again, we could go and look on the website and pick up on a great deal of detail on any of those technologies. So additive manufacturing we've talked about before, mobile devices and wearable technologies and how they're being applied to manufacturers. The point here is that they're getting real evidence from real companies, and indeed we're helping them to develop those case studies as well. And there's a number of those that we'll go through in a moment. Probably better in the question and answers session at the end of this. If anybody's interested in particular technologies, then we'd be very happy to go into those in more detail. But at least you know that that reference is available. From our own experience, Ravi and I, again, were fortunate enough to get some funding from Innovate UK late 2019 and then into 2020, so in full coronavirus times. We worked with a large number of small and medium-sized manufacturers, mainly based in the southeast of the UK, because that was the particular focus we chose at the time. Pre-pandemic, it kind of mattered where people were. During lockdown, nobody minded anymore, so we brought in other organizations, other companies from other regions. But we thought you'd be interested in the kinds of technologies that we ended up helping them to invest in. And in fact, there were four different types of technologies: data management, and analysis technologies, ERP systems and so on, customer and supplier engagement technologies, so things like customer ordering portals, stock management systems, and then operational equipment projects, so things like automation on the shop floor, for example, and then operational data communications projects as well on the end. And what you can see, I think, is the interesting I suppose, bias towards particular types of projects. So the most popular types of projects, particularly in the early stages, were around data management and analysis. In other words, get your data right first, and on the back of that, with the benefit of that enhanced information, you can start to invest in technologies that will run your shop floor systems more efficiently. You can start to engage with your customers and with your supply chain on the basis of knowledge of what's actually going on in your business. So here's real evidence from quite a large number of businesses as to the kinds of things that are really making a difference to them, because they wouldn't be investing unless they're going to get return on investment out of them. Go on to the next section of this talk. We really wanted to get into more detail about how companies make money out of data and digital technologies. So let's have a look at some of those examples. The first one again comes from our friend, the Made Smarter review of 2017. So although it's a few years old now, it still has some thought-provoking information about the kinds of benefits that data and digital can deliver. But the problem is, of course, if you look at this grand sort of sector-wide or industry-wide viewpoint, the numbers can be overwhelming. If you look at the billions of pounds that companies were projected to gain in terms of efficiency savings, in terms of cost reductions, those numbers are so large that it's difficult for any particular manufacturing company to get their head around. If you look at the percentages, as we've got on the screen here, it's that little bit easier. But still there's the huge question, isn't there, of, well, what about my business in my sector with the particular issues that my business has? Lots of business leaders seem to think of themselves as unique, or their businesses as unique, and they're absolutely right, of course. So generally, what we found, Ravi and I found most helpful, is looking at specifics. And here's one. In fact, here's one from the work that we did with Made Smarter in the Northwest. So Andrea Howe is the chairman, and Mark Poole, you'll see in a moment, is the operations director of ATEC Engineering Solutions in Manchester. Wonderfully, they're showcasing the digital road mapping approach that we developed at Made Smarter and helped the advisors there to deliver. Listen out for the benefits that she and Mark are directly talking about, the things that we help them with our systematic approach to deliver. And it's an approach that Ravi will talk about in more detail in a moment. Let's listen to Andrew and Mark for a couple of minutes first.
ATEC Engineering Solutions design and manufacture products for the defence industry in the aerospace, land, sea and air. The business has been around for a long time, and we have a lot of very old IT systems in place which didn't talk to each other. The fundamental underlying problem was we'd set ourselves a target of 97% on-time delivery for our customers, and we were swinging between anything between the late 50s and the early 90s.
We were reading the system and believing that we were worse than we actually were with the jobs that we were trying to do, because the information within the system wasn't quite right. It wasn't quite in the right place.
I'm actually on the commission for Made Smarter, so I was involved in the pilot scheme in Manchester. And during one of the meetings, there was talk about the digital road mapping. Digital road mapping is just a process of really brainstorming all the systems that you have and actually creating a map of where that all is in the business. Under Made Smarter, the process was 2.5 days with a third-party consultant.
They help you maintain focus, understand what your priorities should be and what you need to do to get your business to perform at the end of the day. Through the focus, understanding what we needed to change, when we needed to change it, how we needed to change it, has enabled us to take our KPIs from probably achieving around 75–80% to now 97% plus. And that is as a direct result, I believe, of the digital road mapping process.
I think a lot of the SME businesses that I work with are just like me. They're afraid to get started because they don't really know where they are. And the whole Industrial 4.0 seems to be something that's much bigger than them. So my advice would be for them to join in with the Made Smarter project, to take the opportunity of the free road mapping process that we've been through. And there are follow-on processes that they can do with Made Smarter. So for me, the advice would be to just bite the bullet.
So much for the advertising there. All good stuff. But underneath that, you hear what Andrea is really talking about, which is a need for help for a lot of SME companies in particular. Help to understand what's possible with digital technologies. So that's why she's referring to the advisors there. The advisors helping them to really open up their eyes to what is possible within their particular business based on real experience in other businesses. So the things that you heard her talking about there, more about the benefits than anything else. So you probably picked up that they actually achieved far more in terms of improvements in productivity and efficiency than they were expecting. They got over their 97% target. They were going from not bad. Most companies would think 75% productivity is not bad, but we all know in the modern age that many companies, many countries are achieving way up into the 90s. So UK businesses should be very interested in this. And what we're trying to do, along with Made Smarter, is make those case studies more available, more accessible, really to inspire another wave, another generation of manufacturing companies. The particular technology she didn't say very much about, but ATEC invested in 3D printing. The biggest thing that made a difference to them was investing in data management systems that would allow them to track progress of the large number of different jobs that they had going across the shop floor. Their defense sector, and so a lot of those things have a large number of checks that they need to apply to the work that they're doing, and they need to be able to demonstrate that they have carried out certain checks. So what they've done is to move very swiftly from a paper-based system to a digital system, and their customers now have much greater assurance as a result of that. So as well as efficiency benefits, they've also got customer assurance and quality benefits. Let's have a look at some other case studies as well. Oops, move on swiftly from that. As I've mentioned, we've done our best to publish evidence of case studies from the diverse manufacturers that we've been fortunate enough to work with. We've very recently, just in the last month or so, published a report on our Innovate UK funded program from last year and the year before. The evaluation of digital breakthrough Southeast. It was run as a proof of concept project. We had a total of something like 39 companies we engaged with, and 17 or 18 of them went all the way to the end of the program. And what we'd like to do now is maybe just give you a bit of a flavor from 4 very different companies of the kinds of issues that brought them into the program in the first place, and the kind of steps forward that they've been able to take with data and digital technologies. Ravi, I think you're going to pick up first on eCoffins. Very interesting business.
Sure. So we worked with eCoffins, who are a coffin manufacturer based in rural Kent. So they're a family business, a very innovative business. And previously they were importing coffins primarily from Asia, using materials such as bamboo and willow. But they've been looking at how they can make more sustainable designs and use more sustainable material. And actually recently they've developed new coffins made using cardboard. And I think it's worth highlighting first that their managing director has a real vision for innovation and for using new technologies and making continuous improvement a priority in the business. And that culture was reinforced across his management team. So when we met him, they had ambitions to grow their market share. They really wanted to continue to be a market leader for sustainable coffins. But they also see the opportunity to use their data to improve customer service and to better manage their supply chain. So through working with us and really exploring the different areas of challenges in their business and some of the opportunities for how data and digital technologies can make a difference, we came up with a number of priority areas. So firstly, they wanted to upgrade their ERP system and to make sure that core systems were all integrated together. So the client-facing systems and the finance systems, making sure those were all joined up. And the result of that has been a better way to manage and monitor their stock and their ordering processes with their customers. Off the back of that, they wanted to set up a portal to speak with their clients or to allow their customers to connect with them faster, to give their customers real-time access to data on stock and prices, and also to be able to interact. So for example, uploading artwork, and in the future, they're looking at augmented reality and virtual reality as a way to create an even better customer experience. And then on the operational side, they've been looking at technologies such as 3D printing. They've actually bought a printer now, and they've been able to create a tool which helps their customers, the funeral directors, to tighten the wooden screws on the handles, and that's been a real time saver for their customers. So it's made them more popular, and in their particular business, the directors are the ones who promote the different products that are available. So keeping a customer happy is good for business. And finally, they're looking at other hardware. So for example, how could they use tablets? How could they better track products using, for example, RFID? They've looked at things like artificial intelligence to help with forecasting. And in terms of their production processes, looking at areas that could be automated. So they've automated some of their spray painting, and they're looking at other machines that could help to speed up production. The net result of this has been that as they've grown and seen increased demand for their products, the digital investments have helped them to maintain productivity and be able to meet that demand. And so it's a really good example of using data not only to improve productivity, but also to deliver a better service for customers. I think, Stephen, back to you.
Thanks, Ravi. It was also worth reflecting, it was one of the very few companies we managed to physically visit last year. At the end of one of the lockdowns, we had the opportunity to go and visit them. And I must admit, we were a little bit suspicious getting invited at the end of a lockdown by a coffin maker, but we got away with it. And in fact, they are delightful people. We recommend a visit down there. Very eco-friendly, very sustainable buildings and premises. So quite an inspiration actually on a number of fronts. I'm going to talk a little bit about ArcFab. So ArcFab Sussex, based in Ringmer in Sussex, a metal fabrication specialist, in fact, structural steel experts, making staircases, a whole bunch of architectural features as well, and also ship restorers. They managed to diversify. Their problems really, think of them as a traditional metal fabrication outfit, tied into old ways of working, old factory layout, massive amount of space with very few people working in it, huge machines hardly utilized at all. Low investment over a number of years. I think that's also a common factor we've seen in some businesses. Inefficient in terms of data management, in fact, not really on top of their data at all, and relatively long lead times for production. So quality stuff, but it takes a long time to get it out of the factory premises. The owner, very keen indeed, an individual convinced by the opportunities that data and digital technologies could provide, having listened to a number of peers, having attended a number of events over the years, but not really having enough confidence to move forward. So one of the things that we helped them with was really to understand what was possible. A lot of it actually had been researched by the managing director before we met him, but nevertheless, what he needed was help to put a plan together so that it would actually help him to stabilize his cash flow. He was going to invest in these things himself, and the last thing he wanted to do was to get cash flow out of kilter. So we helped him come up with the plan. What he got out then from the Digital Breakthrough project was a much more joined up understanding and plan for the systems that would underpin the way that his business would work. So one of the key things that he was able to achieve was factory production control certification, which is a big thing in the steelwork industry, the structural steelwork industry. So without joined up systems, without a really good grip of the data within the business and the ability to track jobs, without that, he wouldn't have been able to get the certification. He's also been able to develop CAD/CAM integration from estimation, design, production through into delivery, and go a great deal down the road to improving customer assurance. And in a highly competitive industry, I think all of the four of these we're going to talk about are in very competitive areas. Without that, he would have really been struggling. He's got some big plans for the future as well around online ordering, online customer ordering, and also around ability to order stock pieces from the warehouse, so making that a much more rapid turnaround for customers. Again, really important in a competitive industry. Perhaps the big piece of news here is that ArcFab Sussex is back in profit for the first time in years. They've been able to get to grips with cash flow and manage improvements in efficiency and productivity, all within their own budget. So it's a really good news story, and again, one that we love to make available to others. And the managing director is very happy indeed to talk to others who are interested in how he managed to do it, and managed to do it without a massive investment in single pieces of technology. He went for plug and play solutions. So for example, he's got Xero financial management software connecting with his production system. So Strumis and Bluebeam, which are specialists within the structural steel industry. So all of that joined up nicely. without a huge amount of external advisor support on the technical details. I'm going to hand back to Ravi to talk about the Manchester Manufacturing Group.
Yes, a Manchester Manufacturing Group, it's another family business that we've worked with, and they specialize in fast track textile printing and manufacturing. So a lot of what they do is made to order, and it's direct to customer, but often on behalf of much bigger brands. And they do products such as matting, window blinds, and more recently, wallpaper. When we met them, it's a very ambitious management team, and they were keen to grow and to diversify their product offering. And they were particularly looking at this digital wallpaper market, and they had the opportunity to take on some larger contracts in that space. And for them, they really saw data and digital as a way to be able to support these larger contracts, but also to be more competitive and longer term to offer a much more value add service to their customers. So some of the things we explored as we developed their digital strategy. So firstly, and actually similar to some of the other businesses we've mentioned, data and systems. So we were looking at how their system could be upgraded to better support their customer requirements. That included joining up data, developing the appropriate web apps and customer portals. And longer term, they wanted to introduce technologies such as augmented reality. So some of the things we might take for granted from a consumer perspective, for example, we open up our mobile phones so we can scan a room and see a product in place. They wanted to be able to offer some of those services to their customers. So data and systems underpin that. Secondly, around the operational performance, in order to deliver the larger contract, they wanted a new digital print, cut and packing machine. But they saw this as an opportunity to take advantage of a digitally enabled machine. So one that would support remote monitoring and provide more machine diagnostics on board, but also a machine that you could operate remotely and 24/7, which would improve their overall productivity. And actually, with the machine that they put in place, this has also been integrated and connected with their customer ERP systems. So there's a real sort of transfer of data from customer through to production. And the third thing that came out of the road mapping with them was sort of future foresighting and looking at more innovative ideas. And as a result of the process, they've been able to take advantage of a student placement to really bring some digital native skills into the business, but also ownership of future digital research. And they've been looking at automation, both production, but also with some of their computer-aided design and follow-on machines as well. And I think the overall point I'd observed from working with them has been the cross-management approach to developing the digital strategy. So I think at our first workshop with them, there were 8 or 9 of us on the call. And this was really an ambition to have a wider holistic plan rather than just thinking about how one particular silo within the business might use technology. And we've really seen that collaboration as being absolutely critical to getting the most from the potential that data and digital can bring in the business. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Ravi. I'm going to talk a bit about ActiSense, our 4th business here. They are marine electronic equipment specialists based in Poole in Dorset. Another highly competitive industry. They're selling internationally, so clearly wanted to do whatever they could to get ahead of the game with Brexit coming up at the end of last year, beginning of this. So real pressures on them to reduce costs, to be more efficient in their production, but also in their marketing and their understanding of their customers. So they wanted to look at using data and digital technologies much more effectively within the business. I mean, you'd think a high technology business would be able to get to grips with this kind of thing, but it's interesting just how much a little bit of help to understand what's out there and what's possible really makes a difference. It was interesting also that the initiative for this was coming from the guy who was at the time the marketing manager. So he was looking at this mainly from the lens of marketing and customer engagement, but realized that by making connections across the business, he could make much more rapid progress. He could get a coalition going within his business. And that's what we helped with, really. the solutions then that emerge from the road mapping process that we help them through were first and foremost around upgraded ERP system to enable them to get their business data together in one place, a single source of truth that everyone in the business could relate to. So it brought together a number of existing databases and spreadsheets and that kind of thing. They also developed a chatbot on their website to get instant reactions to customers who had queries about certain products and specifications, and they have a massive range of these things, as you might imagine. They were also able to get on top of stock control, which had been a big issue for them. And as I've mentioned before, one of their priorities was getting a handle on marketing. So what could they learn from the different ways that customers were buying things on the web and via telephone calls, and all of the ways in which they would market and sell their products. They were also funded, ended up being funded for some of these developments by the Dorset Growth Hub. One of the things to mention here is how important we found it, Ravi and I, to connect with funding opportunities that are available. There are a number of fragmented funds all around the country, so pretty well wherever you are, there will be some kind of fund that's appropriate. What we try to do is help organizations to tap into those. Some key benefits that came from the work with ActiSense, or came to ActiSense. I suppose one of them to point out is that the guy who was the marketing manager is now the director of sales and marketing, so a promotion came out of it, and I think it was a recognition of his initiative in helping not just marketing, but the whole of the business to move forward. Also worth reflecting that rather like the Manchester Manufacturing Group, MMG, there was a very diverse, a broad collaboration across the different departments of the business. And that's where we find that making progress with data and digital technologies really starts to accelerate. Fixing not just one problem within the business, but problems that affect lots of parts of the business. So if you have poor data about the progress of design, production, and delivery across the business, that will affect so many different people within the organization, from stock control to factory floor scheduling, to logistics and delivery, right the way through to customer satisfaction. If you don't have a handle on that information, then everybody in the business suffers. So what we tend to find is that the data and digital technologies that are going to make the biggest return on investment are the ones that involve the most people within the business. So that collaborative approach, I think, has been very important. And I think it's worth reflecting just on these 4 case studies, and actually on many of the other 60 organizations that we've worked with as well in recent years, just in the last couple of years. The things that are driving them towards data and digital technologies as a way of growing the business are the need for improvements in competitiveness and cost reduction, and founded on improvements in productivity with the business. And no less than that, better ways of engaging with customers. We've seen slightly less, I would say, in terms of supply chain impacts as well, because a lot of companies already think that they're well engaged with suppliers, and they may tend even to blame the suppliers if they have any problems. But we are seeing improvements in stock control, and that's coming through data-based engagement with those suppliers. But more so, we're seeing improvements on the factory floor, improvements in the back office, connection with the factory floor. So for example, around computer-aided design, then flowing into computer-aided manufacture, and being able to track products through the manufacturing process into logistics and delivery. This has been growing. There's no shortage of organizations who are interested in this. The challenge we found is to open their eyes to what's possible. Hence the need, really, and the joy in taking any opportunity we can to tell the stories about these companies who've really made big leaps forward with data and digital. Just finally in this section, before we talk in more detail about how to maximize return on investment, just having a look at the evidence that we have of the leaps forward that organizations are making. So bearing in mind that generally when we first get in touch with manufacturing businesses, the reason they're doing it is because they've heard of data and digital technologies, but they don't yet have the confidence to invest. Or they have a workforce that lacks the capabilities and the commitment to move forward with digital. So what we've ended up with, and these are average figures at the end of the programs that we've run recently, as much as 88% of businesses say that they are now confident to invest in digital. So some of them are already investing in digital, and some of them are saying that, yes, they're now weaving this into their business plans. And at the personal level, so at the individual level, people who were previously, should we say, rather averse to picking up new technologies, particularly people who feel threatened perhaps by automation within a business, what we now have is an average of 84% personal commitment to using digital technologies. And for all the reasons, for all the personal reasons why that would make sense, it helps them to move their careers forward. Learning a new skill is a useful thing in any case. So careers, mobility, and skills are really strong drivers at a personal level for moving forward with data and digital technologies. Nobody we work with yet has yet lost their job to a robot. So that's also a positive indicator, I think. That's a myth that needed to be busted, I think. The figure on the left there, Ravi's going to talk a little bit more about digital readiness in a moment. But we recognize that individuals might categorize themselves at different stages of capability or different stages of interest in data and digital technologies. So the scale from 1 to 9 simply is a straightforward way of measuring that. So you might go, as an individual, you might go from being a digital outsider, somebody who has nothing to do with digital technologies in his or her job, all the way through to being an explorer, somebody who's inspired to find out more about how digital technologies can help them, right the way up to becoming an evangelist for data and digital. And we met people across the whole of that scale there. Well, that's really interesting, particularly on the Innovate UK funded project that we were involved with last year, is the shift in people's self-perception of their interest and abilities in data and digital technologies. From an average, you can see on the grey peak above the line, of about 38%. The peak is coincides roughly with the level of digital novice, which means a reasonably low level of understanding of digital technologies, but a real desire to find out more. The shift then, when we measured with the same people after the program, the shift is really quite dramatic. From digital novice to digital investor on average, someone who's prepared to invest their own time and in some cases their own money to move forward with digital technologies. People who invest their time in their own training and invest in really getting to grips with digital technologies because it's making their lives easier. They recognize that their jobs are now, that they are better able to do the jobs in front of them, and they're better able to do other jobs within the business as well. So they can move on and do bigger and better things. So 3 key areas, I think, where we can really measure the improvement at a personal level and at a business level in the willingness, intention to adopt data and digital technologies. There's so much more that we could say about companies and about the benefits. And again, we'll pick up on some of this if you're interested in the Q&A session. We've got one more planned section of chalk and talk, if you like. So I'm going to hand over to Ravi to tell us more about how we can maximize return on investment in data and digital.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. So through our work with SMEs, we have, in essence, developed what we think of as a learning journey. And what we often find is there are a series of questions and challenges that we're seeing repeatedly across many businesses. starting right from the beginning in terms of where do I start and why should I bother, and what's in it for me, all the way through then to how do I bring my team on the journey and really maximize the benefits from all these digital technologies. The process that I'm going to take you through, you can read more about it in the report that you can see on this screen. And I thought I'd mention at the outset a couple of tools that we'll look at in a bit more detail later. One being the digital readiness level tool, which is in essence a diagnostic and a way of thinking about digital maturity that's been developed by a cross-industry consortium, including the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, Digital Catapult, and others. And we were a part of helping to develop that tool. And Stephen's already mentioned the British standard PAS 1040, which I believe is still freely available from their website, and is a great short guide that's a bit of bedtime reading if you want to dig deeper into some of the different aspects of readiness. But if we look at each of these stages in turn, so firstly, digital insights. And I hope the case studies that we've shared today have already started to inspire and to give you ideas of how others have been using data and digital technologies. What we really find is that inspiration is often the start of businesses really catching a vision and starting to see what might be possible, the art of the possible within their business. And we think it's absolutely vital that there are more case studies, access to demonstrators and test beds, and really the ability to see real data from how other companies similar to yours are taking advantage of these technologies. As Edge, we try to do our bit to spread the good news, if you like, and we will regularly have peer networking sessions where manufacturers can share their personal experiences and best practice on how they're using data and digital. And on the slide, we talk about digital pioneers. And, I think in terms of the adoption curve for many of these technologies, we're still at a relatively early stage. So although I think there's been a lot of hype about digital, particularly over the last year with the pandemic, we're still at the beginning of a journey, and there's so much more that businesses can explore in terms of the potential of these technologies. So drawing inspiration from others who are already there and using some of these technologies is a great way to learn what's worked, and maybe also to avoid mistakes and to get to a return on investment far quicker. So that's the first stage, and our encouragement would be to take advantage of everything that's out there, both on the internet and through networks and organizations such as your local enterprise partnership. Next, we talk about digital briefing, and once an organization has decided that there is potentially something to explore and they can start to see the benefits that might be possible, the next question is, well, where do I start? And it can be quite overwhelming with so many different technologies out there, and with the need to often bring, as Stephen mentioned earlier, resistant staff and people who might be a little bit fearful about what this all means. So we find there's a couple of things that are really helpful here. The first is to involve the whole business. So rather than a siloed approach of adopting one technology or trying to fix a very specific problem without taking into account the breadth of the business, we think it's far better in the long run to have that cross business perspective. And our experience, and I think this probably came through in all the examples we gave, was having that leadership from the top of individuals who really want to make this happen, because there will be challenges along the way, whether it's integrating certain systems or things that don't quite work first time. And so having that strong leadership really ensures that that there's a commitment to the longer term digital transformation. Tools such as the digital readiness tool that I'm going to talk about are ways of capturing where the business currently is, and also looking at that at an individual level, so understanding where there might be skills gaps. And one of the other things that we look at is across the different aspects of readiness, it might be that there are particular areas of development within the business, and so by having that broader insight, you can tailor development plans and projects to address some of those weaknesses, but also to build on strength that's already in the business. And that's going to be different for every single business. So having a bespoke perspective of where you're at and the technologies that are right for you is absolutely vital. Once there's a commitment and a starting place, we then move into the more practical aspects of this learning journey. So the first element of this, the digital business strategy, is where we start to identify where the business currently is and really get the different members who are contributing to think about challenges and opportunities and things that they would love to address in the business where better data and new technologies could make a material difference. We've typically done this through workshops, both face-to-face and online. And we mention here an open access record. Really, we see the whole digital journey as an iterative process. And so what we want to encourage businesses to do is to start to capture the relevant information, but then to keep working with it and building on it. And that, could develop over a long period of time. And as you start to see the results of different projects, things might change and there might be new challenges and new opportunities. And it is very common that once we see a team start to be inspired by the potential for digital, they then start to come across so many more ideas and opportunities, seeing how other people have taken advantage of those technologies. And the thing I'd really emphasize again is the importance of that cross-business collaboration. So listening to perspectives from across the business. Now, having got a vision for what you want to do, the important thing is then to prioritize and to start to look at where are the dependencies. There might be projects that are enablers and important foundations, for example, having accurate data and having a real sense of, if you like, your golden source of data within the business. But also, I think this is sometimes where reality hits the road, and it's about what is the right timescale to implement new ideas. Where are the quick wins and projects that can build confidence in the team, and also some of those longer term ambitions that might require a multi-period viewpoint, either because of the complexity or the cost. One of the things I was reflecting as we were going through the case studies was pretty much every business had one or two quick wins, immediate things that they could do, which helps in two ways. One, in terms of confidence, I mentioned. So really starting to show people that actually this data can help. So an example with Manchester Manufacturing Group was by having a little bit more access to data, they were able to reduce the time taken to handle customer queries. And that immediately created bandwidth in their team. So immediately everyone is saying, actually, digital is making a difference to my day job. This is good. And then the other thing here is around prioritization is that there's going to be different perspectives from different business units. And so that ability for everyone to look each other in the eye and work out what is going to make the most impact to our business over each period. And it's a negotiation, because I think, to have that dream of a smart factory, it's not created overnight. And I think it's important to think about the incremental steps along that journey. And pretty much every business we've been working with, where they are today is completely different to where they were 2 or 3 years ago. And they can point to those different steps along that digital journey as they've seen different projects start to unlock, if you like, the next set of potential from how they use the technology. The final element to talk about in this journey is transformation. And in order to realize the benefits and to implement technology successfully, we see this as it's a team exercise, and there's a lot of work that's needed to bring everyone on board and to change the culture within an organization, but also to be able to deal with the various aspects of any particular technology. So for example, technologies that are customer facing, there's a need to test and get feedback from customers and engage and in an iterative way. You may be familiar with agile project management. as a methodology, and we find that is particularly effective with digital technologies. The ability to undertake changes in shorter sprints and to learn from feedback along the way, and to, where necessary, to replan and to take on board the lessons learned. Tracking how people are building in confidence and using tools such as digital readiness to do that. Again, a great way of the team being able to see how things are changing and how their own knowledge about different technologies and confidence is evolving as they learn more and start to see some of the technologies in action. So we really see the whole idea of transformation is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight, and there's a real need to work with your team along the way. I'm going to mention a few of the tools that we find helpful. There's three that I'm going to talk about briefly. The first is the digital readiness level tool, and I'll give you a little bit of a broader overview of some of the underpinning themes and pillars that we look at there. We've also got project management tools that we use to help with developing roadmaps, and we take advantage of many of these, but many of them you may already have access to. And thirdly, I'll mention briefly an app that we've developed over the last 12 months to support this process. So firstly, digital readiness. So the digital readiness level tool, as I mentioned, was developed with a cross-industry consortium. And underpinning the research, there were three core lenses in terms of how digital impacts the business. So the first lens was around leadership and really thinking about ensuring that as an organization, there is an overall vision and culture to support the adoption of new technologies. Secondly, the technologies themselves, and that we also want to think about the processes and the systems, and if you like, all the enabling aspects that can enable technology to be implemented. And then thirdly, how do we recognize value from those technologies? And that is both through people and through skills, but then also through how we measure productivity and performance of labor and of machines, and finally of the external partners that we work with, whether that's customers, suppliers, or other partners. And on this slide, you can see a few examples of elements that can be measured and different aspects which would give an evidence, if you like, of where an organization has a strong maturity, or for that matter, where there might be areas to work on. So for example, if we think about operational performance, you know, are we able to track data about our machine productivity? Do we currently have the ability to monitor machine uptime and to understand where there might be room for improvement? And as an example, I picked up last week from a customer we were speaking to, by measuring that data in real time, they were able to achieve a 10% improvement because they'd spotted that there was an hour every day where the machine could have been switched on earlier, but they hadn't previously captured data to show them that. The other area just to mention on this is around, you know, it's not a consistent thing where you're going to have the same score in every aspect. And one of the values that we see from diagnostic tools, such as the digital readiness level tool, is the ability to test where you are stronger and where you're weaker. And that can lead to inform initial activities. So for example, you may find that there's a strong vision for digital and a real sense of what could be done, but nothing's really been done around some of the core processes and systems in the business. So that's a really good starting place, is to understand those processes in more detail in order to then identify the appropriate technologies. Moving on to digital strategy, this is an example of an iterative roadmap that we've created with a client, and it's probably quite hard for you to read it on the screen, but moving from left to right, in essence, as we explore different aspects, insights and inspiration, and then challenges and opportunities within the business, tools, and this particular tool is Trello, these tools allow you to capture that information collaboratively. So everyone in the team who's participating in those workshops can share their thoughts and can comment and add their ideas onto what other people are saying. And over time, we build up a really rich picture of what is going on in the business. We build up a picture of some of the opportunities. And then the green sections on the right is where we start to take those opportunities and prioritize them, identify, well, which technologies are going to deliver a return on investment sooner, and where does the focus of initial investment need to be. And the answer isn't the tool Trello, but the concept I want to get across is using these collaborative tools is a great way to involve the whole team in a dialogue about your digital strategy. And we find every client we work with, we will use a tool like this to make that process interactive and engaging. And I mentioned our app. One of the things that we have, I say, discovered, one of the outputs from a lot of our work has been how do we bring individuals on the digital journey together with, if you like, the management team and others who are passionate about it. And there are knowledge gaps, there are areas of development, and there's also a need for individuals to take personal responsibility for how they can contribute and engage with projects and priorities. And so the app that we've created, and I've put a screenshots here, is our start at trying to move from insights and briefing and sort of capturing an initial position of where people are at with their digital maturity, through to actually enabling individuals to learn more about certain technologies, to learn more about what their company has planned to do, to offer feedback on that, but then most importantly, to start to take personal responsibility and create their own learning journey or action plan at an individual level. And we'd be happy to, with beta testing it right now. So if people are interested in applying it in their business, we'd be very happy to offer access to that. So those are just some of the tools that we've used within our digital breakthrough approach. And these are our tools, but there are many tools like this that are available which can help, if you like, to streamline and fast track the development of a digital strategy and plan and engage your team on that process. Back to you, Stephen.
Ravi, thank you very much indeed. There's a lot perhaps to reflect on in questions and answers in a moment, but also to think ahead to future sessions. We're really interested in your feedback on deeper dives into particular aspects of data and digital manufacturing. So if you have any views on that, do let us know. But if you've got any questions now on the three aspects we've talked about so far, so what are data and digital technologies? How can those technologies boost my particular business? And then how can I maximize return on investment in data and digital to make sure that it's all progressively managed? I'm very happy to pick up any questions you might have on that. Mark, have there been any questions in the chat?
Steve, not so far, no. But obviously, opportunity now to add any in. Maybe just while we wait for folks to add any questions they'd like to ask, I was interested to ask you about your experiences with supply chain. Obviously, there's a lot an individual business can do with digital technologies and use of data and what have you. But I guess the impact of getting whole value chains, supply chains working together using using digital tools, presumably you can that would multiply the potential benefits up significantly. But just wonder if you had any experiences that of doing that, and anything you could perhaps share.
Perhaps I could chip into that one. So I think what we're seeing is the use of data and digital technologies to enhance supply chain capabilities. That is now really coming to the fore. It's kind of lagged behind in recent years. So as I mentioned, our real experience has been companies keen to make production improvements and customer engagement improvements. But look what's happening now with supply chain. So we're seeing supply chains, actually groups of manufacturers really interested in working together so that they can improve the flow. And there are a number of reasons for that. One, of course, is about improving lead times all the way from supplier right through to customer. Everybody has an incentive to do that, because if you can make that more efficient, you can reduce costs, you can make the whole value chain much more competitive. So the drivers are now becoming much more obvious and more companies are being interested. But also from the point of view of compliance and the ability to really understand the progress of a product all the way through. And that's increasingly important as companies are looking to sell to a wider range of markets overseas as well as in the UK. And even within the UK, a number of these markets are becoming much more stringent in terms of being able to track what has happened to a part, in other words, the accreditation of it. You heard me talking about that to some degree with the ArcFab Sussex case study. It's made a big difference to them to be able to demonstrate all the way through the supply, design, manufacture, and deliver phase the competence of that production, of that manufacturing value chain. So we're starting to see it come alive, and it's sort of switching from conversations about rather esoteric data and digital technologies, for example, like blockchain, to become much more, can we say, mainstream. I'm not saying that blockchain isn't mainstream, but it's taken a while to get to the point where people think that that is a thing with real credibility in manufacturing. But now we're seeing all sorts of technologies supporting supply chain effectiveness, supply chain innovation, and supply chain delivery, frankly, at the bottom line. So, for example, digital twins are now extending from the shop floor, from the factory, through back into the suppliers who are providing just, in many cases, just in time delivery of systems and components. So it's particularly in the automotive sector. So you can understand from your management, from your control perspective, just how the system is performing right across the spectrum of the value chain. So these are becoming much more realistic.
Thanks, Stephen. That's great. I haven't had any further questions. Just one person had to leave, which yeah, happy to take any further questions at all. What we could do is, I was going to say just a few words about the support, digital technology support available through Digital Catalyst. So perhaps that'll just take a few moments, and yeah, we can pick up any sort of final questions at the end, if that sounds okay. Okay, what I will do, just while I'm just saying a few words about this, I'm just going to launch a satisfaction poll, which would be grateful if folks would be good enough to complete, please. Obviously, we do use the feedback to obviously see what's what we're doing well, but also areas for improvement as well. So any feedback you have would be very gratefully received. And as I say, that poll is going on in the background. So very briefly, just a little bit about digital Catalyst support. So this is a program that's available to small and medium-sized enterprises in the Humber area. Small and medium-sized being up to 50 million turnover, about 43 million balance sheet, and 250 less than 250 employees. Essentially, and also trading for at least 1 year. I'm going to see if I can actually move this forward. Oh, thanks. So, yeah, no, that's right. I'll just ask. I think it's always a bit hit and miss, isn't it, with the screen sharing? So actually, I was going to go. If you wouldn't mind, just going on to the next one, please. Brilliant. So in a nutshell, the support that's available, we have acquired and put together a team of expert technology specialists who are able to help really with almost any aspect of digital technology. So across the team, we've got a very broad spectrum of knowledge and expertise. But one area which is common to all is having a decent understanding of business. And part of the process that we go through the program is to really try to understand your business aspirations and current performance levels. Because otherwise, any suggestions of digital technologies, as we've heard from Stephen and Ravi, it would potentially be out of context. So it is it is having that genuine diagnosis of need, but then sort of matching any suggestions and advice that's provided to really making a difference in your business, because ultimately this is about having impact. So it's about efficiency, it's about developing new products and services, generating new sales, keeping you safe with cybersecurity and so on. So we also can help with brokering to further support and grants and funding. Excuse me. Part of the support is to help, having identified the needs of your business, is to then help to find suitable solutions out in the marketplace to fast track that. The team have been heavily involved in that in the past and can do that very quickly. But there's some, it isn't all about strategy. There's some hand holding to help get started again. I think it resonates with some of the messages that we've heard today, and that helps actually build that confidence, I suppose. And so it is about rolling up the sleeves and helping to get started, and hopefully just provides a really good shortcut to the right solutions for your business. Ultimately, we're keen to help businesses to become better IT customers in the future. So looking at how you diagnose what you need, but then how you then acquire those technologies to make you a better place to do that going into the future. Next slide, please, Stephen. Thank you. Yeah, I think I've mentioned that already, so if you wouldn't mind going on to the next one again. So we currently the current version of the program is fully subscribed, but we are expecting to extend it. So currently any businesses that are interested in taking part, we're building a waiting list. So please do contact us through one of the means there. We're expecting for that to reopen within the next couple of months. Again, Stephen, please. And there's a lot of other support available through the Humber website, through the Humber Growth Hub. Obviously, it's recently, I don't know if people are aware, but recently split between Humber and East Yorkshire with Lincolnshire, but certainly Digital Catalyst and so on is still available through to businesses in all of those areas. But lots of other stuff available. There's a great team of business advisors within the Growth Hub. There's access to grants and investment advice. There's an excellent growth program for scale up program for potential growth businesses, supply chain network, and so on. Obviously, we're particularly biased that businesses take advantage of Digital Catalyst. There's also a range of technology webinars which are being run under the umbrella of Grow My SME. So please do keep an eye out for those, and do join future events that we run. This at least one per week, and we're also about to launch Digital Skills Academy workshops through the ICT for Growth umbrella as well. So again, please do watch out for those. Next, please, Steve. So I think I'll have another quick check in the chat. There's no questions been raised, but please feel free. I think at this point, if you do have anything to ask, to unmute and to raise any questions. So I'll do a slow thanks to give you a final opportunity to raise any questions. Really appreciate everybody investing the time today to join us for this what's been an excellent webinar. Really useful information. So and learned a lot myself as well. So it's been really interesting, really useful. So big thanks to yourself, Stephen and Ravi, for an excellent presentation. Much appreciated.
Mark and others on the call, thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure.
Great stuff.